Silence had a weight in the Galactic Assembly Hall. Every species knew it. When the High Arbiter of the Thetian hegemony rose to speak, that silence became crushing. Ambassador Priya Sharma sat perfectly still in humanity's small section of the massive chamber. Around her, representatives from 300 species watched from their floating platforms. Some had wings, others had tentacles. A few existed as clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields. All of them had one thing in common: they feared the Thetians. High Arbiter Dravan was an insected creature standing 3 meters tall. His exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian, and his compound eyes reflected the light of 1,000 holographic displays. His species had ruled this part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had destroyed 17 civilizations that refused to obey them. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 2 centuries ago. To beings who lived for thousands of years, humans were infants. Loud, ambitious infants who had spread across 40 worlds in what seemed like the blink of an eye. Dravan's translator clicked as he spoke. The Thetian hegemony claims the Vega Corridor by ancient right. 3 human colonies exist in our territory. This is unacceptable. Priya felt Counselor Myra Okonkwo tense beside her. Myra was younger, more idealistic. She still believed in the fairness of galactic law. Those colonies were established in unclaimed space, Myra said, her voice steady. 40 million humans live there now, families, children, they have nowhere else to go. Dravan made a sound that might have been laughter. Then they will die where they stand, unless humanity surrenders these worlds within 30 standard days. The chamber remained silent. No species spoke against the hegemony, not the peaceful Cathari with their philosophy of universal harmony, not the proud Stellari who boasted of their ancient warrior traditions. Everyone looked away. Priya stood slowly. At 58 years old, she had negotiated with terrorists, dictators, and warlords on Earth. She had faced death more times than she could count. This was different. This was facing a god who had forgotten what it meant to be mortal. High Arbiter, she said, her voice calm and clear, I must respectfully decline your generous offer. The chamber stirred. The Cathari ambassador's skin flickered with colors of shock. Even Myra stared at Priya with wide eyes. Dravan's massive head tilted. His compound eyes focused entirely on the small human woman. You decline? You understand what refusal means? The hegemony has erased species older and greater than yours. I understand perfectly, Priya replied. I have studied your history. The Vorthan who refused you 3,000 years ago, gone. The Celestine Empire who challenged you 6,000 years ago, extinct. You are very good at killing. Then you understand your position. I understand yours. Priya smiled, and something in that smile made Dravan's antennae twitch. You have mistaken patience for weakness. You have confused diplomacy with fear. This is understandable. Every species you have faced chose to run or die. She paused, letting her words settle across the silent chamber. Humans are different. Dravan's translator clicked rapidly, processing her tone, finding something it could not identify. Different how? You are soft creatures from a small world. You have no great fleet, no ancient weapons. What makes you different? Priya thought of Earth's history, the wars, the genocides, the endless cycle of destruction and rebuilding that had marked humanity's journey from caves to stars. She thought of the camps at Auschwitz, the bombs over Hiroshima, the trenches of Verdun. Her species had done terrible things to itself. They had learned terrible lessons. High Arbiter, may I offer you some advice? She said softly. Not as a diplomat, but as someone who genuinely wishes to prevent unnecessary suffering. Dravan gestured impatiently. Speak. Withdraw your ultimatum. Apologize to the people of the Vega Corridor. Return to your space and never threaten humanity again. She held up a hand before he could respond. I say this not for our sake. I say this for yours. The chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief. Species who communicated through clicks, whistles, and color changes all expressed the same thing. Shock, amusement, pity for the foolish humans. Dravon's compound eyes glittered. You threaten us, you whose entire species could fit in one of our breeding chambers. I do not threaten, Priya said. I warn there is a difference. She gathered her documents and nodded to Myra. Together, they walked toward the exit. Behind them, Dravon's voice echoed through the chamber. 30 days, humans. Then your colonies burn. Then your homeworld follows. The galaxy. Forget you ever existed. Priya paused at the doorway. She looked back at the assembled species, all of them watching, none of them helping. She looked at Dravon, standing in triumph, already planning the destruction of her people. High Arbiter, she said quietly, the last species that pushed humanity to the edge of extinction was ourselves. We survived. You should ask yourself, if we could survive us, what chance do you have? She walked out into the corridor where Admiral Yuki Tanaka waited, her face grim. Well, Tanaka asked. They chose war, Priya said simply. Tanaka nodded once, then we give them one. Behind them, the Galactic Assembly congratulated the Thessians on their inevitable victory. In 30 days, they said, the human problem would be solved forever. They had no idea what was coming. The wheat fields of New Kerala stretched golden under twin suns. 12 days remained on the ultimatum when the sky turned black with ships. Governor Anil Reddy was inspecting a water recycling plant when his communicator screamed with emergency alerts. He ran outside and looked up. The Thessian fleet had arrived 18 days early. They had lied about the deadline. Of course they had. 200 warships blocked out the stars. Each one was larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. Their weapons charged with a low hum that made the air vibrate. All citizens to shelters, Anil broadcast across the planet. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. 40 million people lived on New Kerala. Farmers, scientists, teachers, children. They had built this world from nothing over 80 years. They had turned a barren rock into a paradise of green fields and clean cities. Now they had perhaps hours to live. Dr. Fatima Hassan grabbed her research data and ran for the underground bunker beneath her laboratory. Around her, colleagues were doing the same. Everything they had worked on, everything they had discovered, had to survive. Fatima, the shields, someone shouted. She looked at the control panel and entered her authorization code. Deep beneath the surface, generators that had been installed 50 years ago and never used hummed to life. A shimmering barrier rose around the planet's major cities. The first Thessian bombardment hit the shields and stopped dead. Warlord Chitkari stared at his tactical display in confusion. Impossible. These creatures do not have shield technology. His second officer checked the readings. The shields are real, Warlord, unknown design, not in any galactic database. Then we break them. For 6 hours, the Thessian fleet pounded New Kerala with enough firepower to crack a moon. The shields held, not forever, but long enough for evacuation ships to launch, long enough for critical data to be transmitted off-world, long enough for something else. Lieutenant Rosa Mendez assembled her militia in the tunnels beneath the capital city. They were not soldiers. They were farmers and factory workers and schoolteachers. But every single one of them had completed basic combat training. It was required on all human colonies, though nobody talked about it to outsiders. The shields will fall within the hour, Rosa told her people. When they do, the Thessians will land troops. They expect us to surrender or run. A young man holding a plasma rifle raised his hand. What do we do instead? Rosa smiled grimly. We teach them what happens when you invade a human world. The shields fell at sunset. Thessian dropships darkened the sky like locusts. They landed in the wheat fields, crushing the golden crops, disgorging thousands of insectoid warriors in gleaming armor. Warlord Chitkari led the assault personally. His species had conquered hundreds of worlds. The pattern was always the same. Overwhelming force, immediate surrender, efficient extermination of resistors. Simple. The first ambush killed 300 Thessian soldiers in 2 minutes. They came from nowhere, from beneath the soil. from inside the grain silos, from the trees and the buildings and the water treatment plants. Humans with weapons, humans with explosives, humans with nothing but farming tools sharpened into blades. "Fall back," Chitkari ordered. "Regroup." But there was nowhere to fall back to. Every street was a trap, every building was a fortress, every civilian was a combatant. A human female, gray-haired and bent with age, detonated herself in the middle of a Theshan command unit. A human child, no more than 12 years old, guided evacuation shuttles through a secret tunnel network. A human man with one arm fired a mounted gun until the barrel melted. The Theshans had superior numbers, superior weapons, superior training. None of it mattered. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not break when they should break. They did not flee when they should flee. They kept fighting. Long after logic said they should surrender. The battle for New Kerala lasted 9 days. When it ended, the planet belonged to the Theshans. Governor Anil Reddy was dead, killed defending the last evacuation shuttle. Dr. Fatima Hassan was captured, along with 30,000 other survivors. The beautiful cities were ruins. The golden fields were ash. But Warlord Chitkari had lost 40% of his invasion force. 40,000 Theshan soldiers dead, killed by farmers and teachers and shopkeepers. He reported to High Arbiter Dravan with something he had never felt before: uncertainty. "The colony is ours, High Arbiter, but the cost was unexpected." "Unexpected?" Dravan's voice was cold. "They fought like nothing I have seen. Every civilian was a warrior. Every building was a weapon. They knew we were coming. They had prepared." Dravan dismissed the concern. "One colony, one victory. Their spirit will break when they see their dead." Across the galaxy, every species watched the fall of New Kerala. They saw the burning cities and the human prisoners being marched into camps. They expected humanity to surrender now, to beg for mercy as so many others had done. Instead, they received a single transmission from Earth. President David Okafor appeared on every screen, his face calm but his eyes burning with cold fire. "To the people of the galaxy, to the Theshan hegemony, you have attacked our home, you have killed our children, you have made your choice." He paused. "Now we will make ours." The transmission ended. The galaxy waited for the surrender that would never come. 3 days after New Kerala burned, the leaders of humanity gathered in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. The room was cold, lit only by holographic displays showing the faces of admirals, generals, and intelligence officers from every nation that had once divided Earth. President David Okafor sat at the head of the table. His grandfather had fled war in Nigeria. His mother had survived famine in Kenya. His father had died in the last water war. Suffering was in his blood, and so was survival. "Show me what we have," he said quietly. Director Samuel Ashford of Intelligence Services pulled up the first display. "For 200 years since first contact, every human government has been preparing for this day. We told the galaxy we had no great weapons. We lied." The display showed schematics that made several admirals lean forward with surprise. "Every colony world has underground bunkers capable of holding the entire population for 5 years. Every civilian above age 16 has completed basic combat and survival training. Every transport ship, cargo vessel, and passenger liner has concealed weapon systems." Admiral Yuki Tanaka studied the numbers. "How did we hide this from galactic sensors?" "We didn't hide it," Ashford said. "We made them think it was something else. The bunkers were listed as mining facilities. The weapons were classified as industrial equipment. The training programs were called emergency preparedness education." General Wei Lin pulled up a star map. "We also have assets inside Theshan space, 300 sleeper agents, 12 hidden supply caches, complete intelligence networks on every major hegemony system." The room was silent for a moment. Counselor Myra Okonkwo spoke from her screen. Why did we prepare for war when we were trying to build peace?" President Okafor looked at her with something like sadness. Because we know what we are, we know what the galaxy is. We hoped for peace, counselor. We prepared for war. That is the human way. Admiral Tanaka stood. The Thessians expect us to defend our remaining colonies. They expect us to form a defensive line and wait for their attack. They expect us to fight the way every other species has fought them. And instead, Okafor asked. Instead, we go to them. Tanaka pulled up her battle plan. 400 strike groups, each one consisting of 5 to 10 fast ships, no fleet formations, no defensive positions. We split up, we scatter across their space, and we start hunting. General Wei Lin nodded. The Thessian hegemony is old. Their supply lines stretch across 10,000 light-years. Their communication relays are undefended because nobody has ever attacked them. Their fuel depots are in the same locations they have used for centuries. We do not engage their main fleet, Tanaka continued. We destroy their infrastructure, we cut their supply lines, we assassinate their commanders, we make them bleed from 1,000 small cuts until they collapse. A young captain named Daisuke Ito raised his hand. What about New Kerala, the prisoners? Okafor's jaw tightened. They are never forgotten. Every action we take moves us closer to freeing them. But we cannot save them by dying in a direct assault. We save them by winning this war. The president stood and looked at each face in the room. 200 years ago, humanity reached the stars. We found we were not alone. We found species older than our civilization, wiser than our philosophers, more powerful than our weapons. We were children in a galaxy of giants. His voice hardened. We offered friendship. We offered trade. We offered culture and art and the things we believed made life worth living. The galaxy took our friendship and laughed. They saw our kindness as weakness. They saw our patience as fear. He looked at the star map, at the thousands of systems that made up the Thessian hegemony. The Thessians believe they are teaching us a lesson. They believe they are showing us our place in the universe. They are wrong. We are about to teach them a lesson they will never forget. The room waited. Humans do not fight fair, Okafor said. Humans do not fight clean. When we are threatened, when our families are in danger, when our homes are burning, we become something that no species in this galaxy has ever faced. We become patient. We become creative. We become relentless. He nodded to Tanaka. Admiral, you have your orders. Show them what happens when you threaten humanity. Tanaka saluted. Across the solar system, hidden shipyards opened their doors. Ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels powered up weapons that had never been fired. Soldiers who had trained in secret their entire lives boarded transports. In 48 hours, the human fleet scattered into the darkness between stars. The Thessians were waiting for a battle. They received a nightmare. On Thessia Prime, High Arbiter Dravan reviewed his victory at New Kerala and planned the conquest of the remaining human worlds. He did not know that his fuel depot at Kethros Station would explode in 3 days. He did not know that his communication relay at the Void Crossing would go silent in a week. He did not know that his supply convoy to the front lines would vanish without a trace. He did not know that the war had already begun. And he did not know that humanity intended to end it in the only way they knew how. Completely. 60 days into the war, Observer Keltha understood fear for the first time. She was a Meridani, a species known for neutrality and careful documentation. Her people had watched empires rise and fall for 100,000 years. They recorded history but never participated in it. This war, however, was unlike anything in their archives. She stood before the Galactic Council, her tentacles pale with distress. The Thessian hegemony is collapsing, she reported, not from battle losses, from something worse. The council members stirred uneasily. Explain, demanded the Cathari representative. The humans are not fighting a war. They are conducting an execution. They attack fuel stations at the exact moment supply ships arrive. They destroy communication relays hours before critical messages are sent. They kill commanders in their beds, in their offices, in their private shuttles. It is as if they know everything the Thessians will do before they do it. Across Thessian space, Captain Daesuk Ito led his strike group through the debris field of what had once been a major shipyard. 7 enemy dreadnoughts had been under construction here. Now they were scrap metal drifting in the void. Confirmed kills on all primary targets, his weapons officer reported. Enemy response fleet is 4 hours away. Then we leave in 3. Ito checked his next coordinates. Resupply at Cache 7, then we hit the processing plant at Vorkesh. Keep moving, keep killing, never stop. His crew understood. The humans had learned guerrilla warfare in the jungles of Vietnam, the mountains of Afghanistan, the streets of Stalingrad. Now they applied those lessons to the stars. Strike fast, vanish faster, leave nothing but wreckage and confusion behind. On the ground, Sergeant Amara Diallo led her team through the tunnels beneath a Thessian military base. They had been operating behind enemy lines for 6 weeks. Their supplies came from hidden caches. Their intelligence came from sympathetic alien species who had suffered under Thessian rule. "Target is in the command center," whispered her scout. "Heavy guard presence." "How heavy?" 30 soldiers, energy barriers on all entrances. Amara smiled in the darkness. "Then we don't use the entrances." 20 minutes later, General Vorthax of the Thessian Third Army died when his floor exploded upward. Amara's team vanished into the sewer system before the guards could respond. By morning, they were 50 kilometers away, preparing their next assassination. The Thessian High Command could not understand what was happening. Their species had perfected military doctrine over 12 millennia. They had contingencies for every scenario, protocols for every situation. None of them accounted for an enemy who refused to fight conventionally. "Where is their fleet?" Warlord Chitkari demanded at an emergency meeting. "They have no defensive lines, no territory to protect. They simply appear, destroy our assets, and disappear." "Perhaps we should recall our forces from the human colonies," suggested an advisor. "Consolidate our defenses around the homeworld." "Never, that would be surrender." "Then what do you suggest?" Chitkari had no answer. He had conquered 100 worlds using the same tactics. Massive fleet, overwhelming force, systematic destruction of enemy military. But the humans had no central fleet to destroy. They were everywhere and nowhere. They were ghosts with guns. The breaking point came at the Battle of Nexer Station. A Thessian dreadnought, the pride of Thessia, received a distress call from a nearby outpost. When it arrived, the outpost was dark and silent. The dreadnought moved in to investigate. Captain Daesuk Ito's strike group had been hiding in the asteroid field for 3 days, waiting. The assault was unlike anything in galactic warfare. Instead of firing from a distance, the human ships accelerated directly at the dreadnought. They dodged the massive vessel's weapons, slipped past its shields, and attached themselves to the hull like parasites. Then the boarding parties went to work. Thessian soldiers were bred for space combat. They were larger than humans, stronger, faster. But they had never faced an enemy willing to fight in the corridors of their own ships. They had never faced humans with plasma cutters and improvised explosives and absolutely no fear of death. The pride of Thessia fell in 4 hours. When High Arbiter Dravon received news of the capture, he felt something his species rarely experienced: doubt. "They took a dreadnought," he said slowly, "alive. They are using it against us now," his aide reported. "They have integrated human weapons into the design. It destroyed 3 supply convoys yesterday." Dravon looked at the star map. Red icons marked lost assets, destroyed facilities, killed commanders. There were so many red icons now. His empire, his glorious hegemony, was bleeding from 1,000 wounds. "Recall all forces from human space," he ordered quietly. "Every ship returns to defend the home system. We end this now." The aide hesitated. "High Arbiter, that means abandoning our conquest. The other species will see it as weakness. The other species will see us survive." Dravon's voice was cold. Bring every ship home, we will make the humans come to us. We will destroy them in one final battle. Across the galaxy, human intelligence networks intercepted the order. Admiral Yuki Tanaka read the message and smiled grimly. They're running home, she told her command staff. They think their homeworld is safe. They think we won't follow. Will we? Asked Captain Ito. We will do more than follow. Tanaka pulled up the final phase of their battle plan. We will end this, and we will do it in a way that the galaxy never forgets. The hunt was almost over. The killing was about to begin. The human fleet arrived at Thesha Prime on the 91st day of the war. They did not attack. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the Theshan homeworld rotate slowly on her display. It was a beautiful planet. Purple forests covered the continents. Silver oceans reflected the light of a yellow sun. 20 billion Theshans lived on its surface, most of them civilians who had never seen a human, never heard of New Kerala, never wanted this war. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, the Theshan Defense Fleet is forming a blockade around the planet. 2,000 ships. They outnumber us 3-1. Good, Tanaka said quietly. We don't want to fight them anyway. She opened a channel to the entire human fleet. 400 strike groups had reunited for this moment. Veterans of 60 days of hunting and killing gathered together for the first time since the war began. All ships form the perimeter, standard blockade formation. No offensive action unless fired upon. We wait. The order surprised some captains. They had spent months destroying Theshan assets, assassinating Theshan commanders, tearing apart a 12,000-year empire piece by piece. Now they were supposed to just sit here. But they obeyed. They trusted their admiral. Inside the Theshan defense perimeter, High Arbiter Dravan watched the human fleet with growing confusion. He had expected an attack. He had positioned his ships for a desperate final battle. Instead, the humans simply surrounded his planet and stopped. What are they doing? He demanded. Unknown, High Arbiter. They have made no aggressive moves. Then we attack, we break their blockade and... Incoming transmission, his communications officer interrupted. From the human flagship, President David Ockafer's face appeared on every screen in the Theshan command center. High Arbiter Dravan, Ockafer said calmly. 91 days ago, you gave us an ultimatum. Surrender or die. You attacked our people. You killed our children. You destroyed our homes. Dravan's compound eyes narrowed. And now you seek revenge. You want to bombard our world as we bombarded yours. No, Ockafer's voice was steady. I want to offer you what you never offered us, a choice. The High Arbiter was silent. Surrender unconditionally. Submit to war crimes tribunals for those responsible for the atrocities at New Kerala. Dissolve the hegemony and join the galactic community as equals, not masters. Do this, and your people will live. Your civilization will survive. And if we refuse, then we maintain this blockade. No ships enter or leave, no supplies reach your planet. Your 20 billion citizens will slowly starve while your fleet watches helplessly. Ockafer's eyes hardened. We are patient, High Arbiter. We can wait years if necessary. Can you? Dravan cut the transmission and turned to his advisors. Lies. They cannot maintain a blockade indefinitely. Their resources are limited. But doubt had already spread through his command. They had seen what humans could do. They had watched their empire crumble in weeks. And now the humans were not even trying to fight. They were simply waiting, like predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Hours passed, then days. The human fleet held its position. Supply ships arrived from human space, bringing food, fuel, and ammunition. The blockade was not a bluff. It was permanent. On the 5th day, something unprecedented happened. A transmission came from deep within the palace complex on Thesha Prime. Not from Dravan, from someone else. Admiral Tanaka watched as a massive insectoid figure appeared on her screen. This creature was different from any Theshan she had seen before. Ancient, enormous. Her carapace was covered in ceremonial markings, and her eyes held a weight of millennia. "I am the Hive Mother," the creature said. "I have ruled my people for 3,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have never spoken to an enemy during a conflict, but you have earned this audience." Tanaka bowed her head slightly. "I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka. What do you wish to discuss?" "I wish to understand." The Hive Mother's voice was slow and thoughtful. "You could destroy us. Your weapons are aimed at our cities. Your ships could reduce our world to ash before our fleet could stop them. Why do you wait?" Tanaka considered the question carefully. "Because we know what extinction means," she said finally. 65 million years ago, our world was hit by an asteroid. The creatures that ruled our planet died. We evolved from small survivors hiding in the shadows. We have faced extinction from disease, from ice ages, from our own weapons. We understand what it means to be the last of your kind." She paused. "We could destroy you, but we would become the monsters we fight. We would prove that the galaxy's way, the way of conquest and genocide, is the only way. We refuse to do that." The Hive Mother was silent for a long moment. "High Arbiter Dravan believes you are weak," she said at last. "He believes this offer of mercy is a trick." "It is not a trick. It is a choice. We give you the dignity of choosing your fate, something you never gave us. And if we choose wrong, if we fight, then we will win," Tanaka said simply. "And your people will suffer for Dravan's pride. We do not want this, but we will not back down." The Hive Mother's ancient eyes studied the human admiral. "I have watched my species rule this region of space for 12 millennia, she said slowly. "I have seen us destroy those who opposed us. I believed we were destined to dominate forever. You have shown me otherwise." She turned away from the screen. "Prepare to receive my surrender." Behind her, Dravan's voice rose in protest. There was a brief scuffle, sounds of weapons, then silence. The Hive Mother returned. "The High Arbiter has been detained. His trial will be the first of many. I accept your terms, Admiral Tanaka. May our peoples find peace in the ashes of this war." Tanaka closed her eyes for just a moment. The war was over. 91 days. A 12,000-year empire ended in 91 days. She opened her eyes and gave the order that would echo across the galaxy. "All ships stand down. The Thessians have surrendered. The war is over." 1 year after the surrender, Ambassador Priya Sharma returned to the Galactic Assembly Hall. The chamber had not changed. The same floating platforms, the same holographic displays, the same representatives from 300 species watching from their designated sections. But everything was different. She walked to the center of the chamber where the Thessian delegation had once stood in triumph. Now she stood there, representing a species that had done the impossible. She was 79 years old, tired from a year of negotiations and reconstruction. But she stood straight and spoke clearly. "1 year ago, I stood in this chamber and warned the Thessian hegemony not to threaten humanity. They did not listen. You all watched. You all expected us to die." The chamber was silent. "We did not die. We fought. We won. And now we are here to help build something new." Observer Keltha, who had documented the entire war, rose from her platform. "Ambassador Sharma, many species wish to know, what do you want from us? The Thessians conquered and enslaved. What will humanity do?" Priya smiled slightly. "We want partners, not subjects. Allies, not servants. We want a galaxy where no species is forced to bow to another, where conflicts are resolved through negotiation, not extermination." "Pretty words," the Stellari representative said with obvious skepticism. "But you have the power now, why share it?" "Because power without purpose is meaningless." Priya looked at each species in turn. "We could have destroyed the Thessians. We chose mercy. We could demand tribute from weaker species. We choose trade. We could impose our will on the galaxy. We choose cooperation." She paused. "This is not weakness. This is wisdom. We learned on our own world, through centuries of war and suffering, that empires built on fear always collapse. We will not make that mistake." On the platform reserved for the Thessians, the Hive Mother listened in silence. Beside her sat a young Thessian named Vorik, one of the first exchange students to study on Earth. He had spent 6 months learning human history, human art, human philosophy. He understood now why his people had lost. After the assembly ended, Vorik approached a group of human delegates. They did not step back. They did not reach for weapons. They simply nodded in greeting. "I have a question," Vorik said carefully. "In your history, you fought wars as terrible as the one you fought against us. You killed millions of your own kind. How did you survive?" A young human woman named Layla smiled sadly. "We almost didn't. Many times we came close to destroying ourselves completely. Nuclear weapons, biological agents, climate collapse. Each time we pulled back from the edge." "But why, if you are capable of such destruction, why stop?" "Because we are also capable of love," Layla said. "Of compassion, of hope. We are a species of contradictions. We can be monsters and angels in the same breath. We chose to be better not because it was easy, but because it was right." Vorik thought about this for a long time. On New Kerala, reconstruction was underway. Human engineering teams worked alongside Thessian prisoners who had volunteered to help rebuild what they had destroyed. Governor Reddy's daughter, who had survived the invasion in the underground bunkers, now led the recovery effort. Admiral Yuki Tanaka visited on the anniversary of the battle. She walked through streets that had been ruins a year ago. Children played in parks that had been killing fields. Farmers planted crops in fields that had been scorched black. "You could have demanded reparations," the new governor said. "Made them pay for everything they destroyed." "We could have," Tanaka agreed. "But hatred has a cost too. We decided to spend our energy on building rather than punishing." She watched a group of human and Thessian workers sharing a meal together. They did not speak the same language. They did not understand each other's customs. But they were trying. That was enough. Back on Earth, President Akafer addressed the United Parliament for the last time before his term ended. "We won a war that should have been impossible to win," he said. "We defeated an empire that had stood for 12,000 years. We did this not because we are the strongest or the smartest, but because we refused to give up. Because we fought for each other. Because when they threatened our families, our homes, our future, we became something they had never faced before." He looked at the camera, knowing his words would reach every human colony, every allied species, every corner of the galaxy. "Let this be our legacy, not conquest, not domination, but a promise. Humanity extends its hand in friendship to any species willing to take it. We offer trade, knowledge, culture, and partnership. We want nothing but peace." His voice hardened. "But let this also be a warning. Threaten our people and we will respond. Attack our homes and we will retaliate. Push us to the edge and we will push back with everything we have. The galaxy learned this lesson once. We hope they never need to learn it again." In the Galactic Assembly, species that had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant now sought alliances. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. Scientific partnerships formed. The galaxy was changing. In a small classroom on Thessia Prime, a human teacher named David taught young Thessians about Earth history. He showed them images of human wars, human atrocities, human suffering. Then he showed them images of human art, human music, human kindness. "This is what we are," he told them. "Both things at once, the darkness and the light. We choose every day which one wins." A young Thessian raised her claw. "Do you think our species can learn to be like yours?" David smiled. "I think every species has both inside them. The question is which one you choose to feed." Outside the classroom window, the purple forests of Thessia Prime stretched toward the horizon. Human ships passed overhead, carrying supplies and teachers and dreamers. The old empire was dead. Something new was being born. And the galaxy remembered the lesson it had learned. Never threaten humanity, because they will answer. Always.